These are Russian nationals, they are Russian citizens, or they are ethnic Russians who have a right not to be subject to a genocidal attack by a government constituted, at least in part, of fascist battalions like the Azov battalions. So it's as it was last week, except it has concentrated the mind wonderfully everywhere except in the British House of Commons. Everyone is now beginning to recognize that Russia has a point. The Spectator magazine this week, that well-known Bolshevik publication, has a headline, "Whisper it softly, Putin has a point." Well, of course he has a point. The Ukraine is being turned into an armed Potemkin state by the United States and by NATO. And no Russian leader could possibly allow that development to go unchecked, unanswered. Whisper it softly, says the Spectator. I don't do whispering softly, as you have already worked out, so I'm shouting it out loud. The breaking of the promises made to Moscow by George Bush the First and by James Baker, his Secretary of State, written about voluminously by Baker in his memoirs. Those promises have been broken and they need to be kept. And the most essential of those promises was that NATO would not advance beyond Germany once the Berlin Wall fell and East Germany ceased to be. That there would be no encroachment on the borders of Russia by NATO enlargement. And in particular, the idea that the Ukraine and Georgia can be turned into armed camps right on Russia's borderline is simply absurd. Just think about it. If Russia was backing a pro-Moscow government in Canada, sending its soldiers there, its weapons there, even its nuclear weapons there, you really think the Americans would just let that slide? You really think the Americans would have nothing to say or do if Moscow turned Canada into an armed camp with its guns all pointing into the United States? And maybe China down in Mexico, down Mexico way? Just think about it. How could any superpower possibly allow itself to be humiliated in that way?